Okay, guys, so it's 11.4 volumes of prisms and cylinders. So the big thing is that the volume is going to equal big B times your height, and big B stands for the area of your base. And the thing is when it's a rectangular prism or a square prism, it's kind of easy to tell where your bases are. They can vary because anyway, you would get the area and multiply it by the height. So for here, for my big B, I am going to do 3 times 5, which will give me 15. So that's my big B. And then my height, I already know, is the distance between my two bases. I've kind of gone ahead and highlighted so you can get an idea of like there's a base, there's a base. Your height is always the distance between the two bases. So in this case, it's 15. And 15 times 15 would be 225 centimeters cubed. But don't worry about like the units and stuff. We're not going to worry. We're not going to have you put those in there in the go formative. So just 225 will do. All right, here is another one. We're going to go ahead and I just identified that my bases were 7.6 by 6. So for my big B, the area of my base, I'm going to do 7.6 times 6. And in my calculator, 7.6 times 6, and I will get 45.6. Now my height is 10, so I'll multiply that by 10, and I will get a volume equal to 456 meters cubed because it's volume. But again, guys, remember, you don't have to write the unit. Okay, so over here, this one was a little hard to tell, but this looks like a pizza box. So like the top of the pizza box is what I'm calling my bases, and my height is going to be 1 inch. So for my big B, I'm going to do 9.8, the area of my base, 9.8 times 5.75. And I will get 56.35. And your height is 1, so the volume would be 56.35 times 1, which would be about 56.35 still. And inches cubed again. Make sure on the go formatives you read the directions, whether it's to the 10th place, which would be 1 decimal, or to the hundredths, which would be 2 decimals. All right, well, now we're getting to triangular prisms, which are a little bit different. Your volume is still going to be equal to the area of your base, big B, times your height. But remember, the big B is going to be your base times your height divided by 2. So the area of a triangle is a little bit different, right? And I went ahead and identified, since it's a triangular prism, the triangles are my bases. So I'm going to do 7. Oh, whoops. Big B is going to be equal to 7 times 35. Which will be about 245. But remember, I need to divide that by 2 because it's a triangle. So 245 divided by 2. And I will get about 122.5. That's my big B. That's the area of my base. Well, oh shoot, I'm doing the wrong one. Okay, I'm doing 7. I'll skip 8, but I'll do 7, which is giving you an answer. But anyway, so the area of my base is 122.5, and now I need to multiply it by my height, which is equal to 18. So I'm going to multiply those two together, 122.5 times 18, which is going to give me my volume equal to 2,205 millimeters cubed because it's a volume. But remember, in the go formatives, we're not being super OCD about making sure that you have this. In fact, don't put it there. It's just easier. Okay, So number 10, the base of a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So we know that the base is 30, 60, and 90, and that the hypotenuse is 10. The height of the prism, so the height of this rectangular prism, meaning the distance between the two bases, oops, here, let me fill this in. This would be your height. They tell you is 15. So we need to figure out the area of our base, which is this wonderful little triangle down here and this wonderful little triangle down here. And we need to multiply it by the height. So I know that across from 90 is 2n, which means that n must be equal to 5. All right, so we know that this is going to be 5. And this, if n is equal to 5, then this would be, 5 rad 3. But just to work with decimals, we're not going to leave it as a rad right now. So we're going to write 5 rad 3, and that equals about 8.66. So to find our big B, we're taking the base and the height of the triangle. So big B is going to be 8.66 times 5, all divided by 2. And when you get that, you would get about 21.65. Okay, so that's my big B. That's the area of my base. Now I need to multiply it by my height, which is 15. So my height, which is 15. And when I do that, I end up with 324.76. So find the volume to the nearest tenth. Well, tenth means only one decimal place, so I would say 324.7 would be to the nearest tenth. Okay, so now, different formula, right? Right here. Again, it's a prism, so the volume is still equal to big B times my height. But big B, this is a circle, guys, so remember the area of a circle is pi times your radius squared. All right, well, we know, and it says, find the volume of each cylinder in terms of pi and to the nearest tenth. On the Go formative, I just had you guys write it to the nearest tenth. So let's just go ahead and skip over the fact that it's pi, and we'll just put pi into the problem. So we're going to take our radius, which is 4.5. We're going to square it, and we're going to multiply it by pi. So 4.5 and squaring it, is going to be equal to 20.25. And then for pi, when we're just writing it shorthand, we just do 3.14. So we're going to do 20.25 times 3.14. And we will end up with 63.59. So that's the area of my base, right? This is going to be my big B equals 63.59. Okie doke. Well, I need to make sure that I multiply that by my height. So my volume is going to be equal to 63.59 times 8.5. And I will get my volume is equal to 540.5 because it told me to round to the nearest tenth. That's just one decimal. Okie doke. So next one, number 14. I have an entire circle that I'm going to go ahead and find the area of, but I'm going to take 75% of that because if you notice, 90 degrees of it or a quarter of it is missing. So once I find the area, I'm only going to keep the 75% of the base since it's missing 25%, right? A whole quarter of it. And then I'll multiply it by the height. So my base is going to be equal to my radius squared, which is going to be 5 squared times 3.14. And remember, 3.14 is what we use for pi when we're multiplying pi into the equation. So that's going to be 25 times 3.14. All right, and that's going to give me about 78.5. Now I'm going to take that. This is the area of my base, but I only want 75% of it. So I'm going to take 0.75, which is where 75% is, and multiply it by 78.5. And I will get 58.875. That's the area of my base when I've taken this quarter out of it. And now I need to multiply it by the height. So my height is going to be 10. So volume is going to be equal to 58.875 and then times 10. Which those of you that are good with decimals, you know that's just moving the decimal place over once. So volume is going to be 588.75, but you notice it says round to the nearest whole number. So we're just going to say volume equals 589. Okay, so number 16. What we're going to do is we're going to find the volume of the whole square or rectangular prism and the volume of this little cylinder in there, and then we're going to subtract the two. Okay, so let's go ahead and find the area of this rectangular prism. We know that the area of the base is just 18 times 10, so 18 times 10 would give us 180, and then we have to multiply it by the height, so the volume is going to be equal to 180 times 8, which is the height, right? The distance between the two bases. 18 times 8. And that would give us 1,440. That's the volume of the whole rectangular prism. Now we need to find the volume of the cylinder. I don't know if I'm reading this right, but if I look at it, it looks like 4 is the diameter all the way across the circle. So I'm going to say that the radius is equal to 2. And I'm going to go ahead and find the base of the cylinder, right, cylinder up here. And this is a rectangular prism. And then I'm going to do 2 squared times 3.14, which will be 4 times 3.14. And I'll get the area of my base is about 12.56. Now I need to multiply it by the height of that, which is not bad because I look, oh, it's going from one end to the other, and I know that that's 18. So I'm going to go ahead and find the volume by doing 12.56 times 18. And I will get the volume equals 226.08. So that's the cylinder. Now I'm going to subtract the two. So if I count how many times I say so, it's probably in the hundreds. 1440 minus 226.08, and we will get 1440, 226.08, 1213.93 or 92, but remember it said whole number, so we would just say 1214 would be our answer. All right. Next one says find the value of x to the nearest tenth. Okay, so this one's a tricky one, right? Because we know this is actually kind of cool. We know that this, okay, so I'm kind of cheating here. But if you notice that this is a 90-degree angle and that these are both equal, the only choice that those could be is 45 degrees and 45 degrees. So what I actually have here is a 45, 45, 90. and I see that my hypotenuse is equal to 14. Well, this is technically x, right? But it's also technically our n side. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to do 14 equals n rad 2. So you guys are lucky because it says round to the nearest 10th. We don't need to leave it. Whoops, it says round to the nearest 10th. We don't need to leave it as a decimal. So all you need to do in your calculator is 14 divided by rad 2, hit enter, and then write it as a decimal. And it says round to the nearest 10th. So if we did that, it would be 9.9 millimeters. Not too bad. Oh, sorry. And I started to invade my space over here. It says number 10 can has a diameter, so all the way across, of 15.5 and a height of 17.5 centimeters. Number 2.5 can has a diameter, so all the way across, of 9.8 and a height of 11. What is the difference of the volume of the two cans to the nearest cubic centimeter? Okay, so we need to find the volume of can number 10, which we will do first. And we'll say number 10, because the number 10 can. And the first thing that we need to do is figure out what the radius is. So we're going to do big B equals pi r squared. Well, r, they gave us the diameter, so we're going to do, 15.5 divided by 2, and we will end up with 7.75. So we're going to go ahead and do 7.75. We're going to square it, and we're going to multiply it by 3.14 instead of pi. So 7.75 squared gives me 60.06. And now we're going to multiply it by 3.14. And we're going to end up with it equaling 188.6. Let's just say. We'll round it to the nearest 10. So that is the area of our base, right? Big B. Now we need to find our volume. So we're going to take our big B, 188.6, and multiply it by our height, which is 17.5. And we know that our volume is 3,300.4. That's of the 10 can. Now let's find the 2.5 can. So again, I know that my area of my base, my big B, is going to be pi times the radius squared, but my radius I need to find. So I'm going to take 9.5 and I'm going to divide it by 2, and I will end up with 4.75. Oops. Okay, so now I'm going to take 4.75. I'm going to square it, and I'm going to multiply it by 3.14. So 4.75 squared equals times 3.14. Enter. I will get the volume of my base here, big B, to be equal to 70.84. Now I need to multiply it by the height, which is equal to 11. Delete times 11. And I will get about 779.3. And now it said, what's the difference between the two? So the difference, I'm going to do 3,300.4 minus 779.3. And I will end up with about 2,521.1. And that is it for this worksheet.